Good morning. I want to call this committee of the whole in session. If you'll please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Good morning. This is our first public comment period. Let me get my look. This is kind of, I don't do this very often. I think the last time was in April. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Rick Moore, Berry County Parks and Rec. I wish to remind everyone, members and guests, to speak into the microphone or use your outdoor voice. I know I say this a lot, but it needs to be said a lot because after about 5 minutes or so, people start whispering. And you spend a lot of time and energy coming here to educate us all, and we need to be educated. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and let the show begin.
Thank you. Hang on, you gotta reset the clock. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mary Maselli, and I am president of the Pleasant and Mud Lakes Association. I know our topic is not on today's agenda, but I live out of state, and this is the first meeting I could attend. You are currently trying to set a lake level on our lakes. Many homeowners do not want a lake level set. We feel that it is not necessary. Mother Nature has taken care of our lakes all these years, and she will do so in the future. More importantly, we have a large population of homeowners who are retired and on fixed incomes. To create another special assessment tax situation on top of both the Cloverdale and Watson drain assessments at a time where their portfolios are shrinking and inflation is above 8% is almost criminal. To tax them out of their homes for what will likely change the lake level very little is not what I assume was your intention. We're so hired an attorney to assist us in fighting this endeavor. We have a petition that we will have to present to this board showing that the majority of homeowners do not want this. Unless there is something on the horizon that you know about that you have not shared with us that would make this lake level imperative, we just don't see the benefit outweighing the costs. Looking at all the documentation we could find about this lake level, one of the most glaring facts is that nothing would be done concerning our level until Crooked Lake is drawn down, which will likely take a few years. Why do this now if it will be years until anything would change for us? If you must force this on us, then please consider putting it off a few years and see if our economy improves. I would hate to see people leave the homes they love due to unnecessary tax burdens. I ask on behalf of my constituents to please reconsider, and if nothing else, please give us a little time to prepare our case before it is placed on a docket. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, there. You were behind the post. I couldn't see you.
My name is Patty Herndon. Last week at the Board of Commissioners meeting, I spoke about Resolution 2010, which seeks to raise a legal lake limit on Pleasant and Mud Lakes, and asked you to rescind that resolution. After the meeting, Chairman Geiger approached me and said that the board does not rescind resolutions. Well, I've done a little research on my own in the last week and discovered that resolutions can be rescinded, and the process does not sound very difficult to me. A county commissioner, realizing that there is not support for the resolution, and there is not now, as we have many property owners' signatures on that opposition, and have received more since I spoke with you in last week, with a promise of more as soon as they return to their property, because many do not live full-time on that lake. The commissioner can make a motion to rescind the resolution, and then the motion to rescind the resolution comes before the entire board to be voted upon. That sounds pretty simple to me. So I am asking again for the Board of Commissioners to rescind Resolution 2010 to set a legal lake limit for Pleasant and Mud Lakes. A legal level is not necessary to achieve the intended goal, and the residents do not need an additional open-ended assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Walter Schellenberger, Hastings. I'd like to address the issue with the health board. When we add another, how many employees, how many more vehicles, how much more is that going to cost the taxpayers in taxes? It looks like to me, instead of cutting government, you guys are adding to government and you're making government bigger. And it just actually costs taxpayers a lot more money. And I would like to see that these vehicles, even though it's already been approved, are these people allowed to take the vehicles home, which is another added expense to the county? That's why we need a split from the Berry County Health Department.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I like the podium up here. Joel Livingston, Rutland Township. And I, as well as many others, are quite baffled as to the battle that we had with the health department. Why would you guys that sit on the health board, why on God's green earth are we having the health department put school liaison officers more or less into these schools and the districts? It just boggles my mind how we've been battling this, and you guys have been ripping your hair out over trying to figure out how to rein in Colette as the health officer who doesn't even have an oath to the Constitution. So what limits her? And I want to see the health department split. I want to see these health officers, or not health, these liaisons be recalled. We do not need to expand our government at this point, especially with the additional staff. I know with the staffing shortages that they have. I'm not going to spend my entire 3 minutes on that, though. Well, kind of, sort of, I am. I'm here today because my public comment to the board has seemed to accomplish nothing unless we filibuster this board. We did that back in, what was it, March or whatever of 21? I can't remember. And we got the restaurants their fees back for the time that they weren't allowed to be open, for the time that the health department was charging them the fee and they weren't even inspecting anyone. I think that was kind of ridiculous. Thank you guys for finally coming on board with that. But I want to, one, personally, and I realize this excludes me from being able to put together a debate, endorse Chuck Hertzler for commissioner, because he was the first person that had the sense or the lack thereof to join me in my fight for getting the restaurants their money back. I want to endorse Mr. Brandon Strong because I have not heard a more comprehensive plan on how to deal with our health department. I want to endorse Gary White because I've heard him come up here countless times with public comment exposing these issues with bringing more people on staff to the health department, growing unelected bureaucratic department that I think needs to be shrunk right down to the bare minimum. And I'm also going to endorse John Gallagher because I think that he's the vote that we need to be able to push this through and gain us a quorum minus one vote, which I'm hoping that someone that is on this board, and I have my opinion as to who that might be, may join along. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, Ben?
Good.
Al Graves, Pleasant Lake. I'm here in support of what has already come before you, not establishing a legal lake limit. Dave, you're a little more familiar with this, being our commissioner. But this didn't just happen. This came about back in 2010 when the drain pipe was to be replaced on Pleasant Lake on Floria Road, and it did not get replaced. And since then, Pleasant Lake has been in an uprising condition. And it eventually, with the large rains, it went into a flood condition. Jim Dole did put in a pipe, but we received no benefit from it because he couldn't open it. So it stayed closed. Since then, we've expanded the Watson Drain. We've paid for that. We put in pumps, Crooked Lake, Cloverdale Lake. We still have no benefit from that on Pleasant Lake. We are still at high water level. There are those on the lake can remember we had 20 foot of beach. We don't have no beach. What we got is, in my estimate and others, over $1 million worth of sea balls, concrete, boulders, wood, rusty iron. We do not need a lake limit. What we need, it's not a legal lake limit. What we need is a lake limit that was set by that pipe on Floria Road that was placed there in the late 1800s. Open the lake, open up the pipe. It will take care of the lake situation of high water. He's paid for the pumps. I understand Jim is still struggling to get parts to get them going. Next year, the permit expires on the pipe and he has to remove the retaining item that he has there. He has to take that off. The lake's going to go right to its natural level then. So if there's any way that you can rescind that, Dave, I believe you made the motion at the last meeting. I would request of you, beseech you, on the people of Pleasant Lake, hard workers, retired people like myself. Ben Geithner, right before we had the Tower Pinkster meetings, you remember that, for building the sheriff's office? Ben made this statement. He said, what the problem is in Berry County is we have millage fatigue. Well, let me tell you, Pleasant Lake has got millage fatigue up to here. So please, rescind that. Let's don't go any further with it. We don't need any more debt on Pleasant Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this morning for the first period? If not, we move right along. Stacy, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stacy Wines. I am the COO and interim CEO at Carewell Services, which is also known as your Region 3B Area Agency on Aging. We are charged to represent both Calhoun County and Berry County, and when I'm not in my office in Calhoun County, I live in Johnstown Township my entire life. So, what I'm here today is talk about our public hearing. Every 3 years we have a annual implementation plan that we have to do, a multi-year plan, and then the off years we come back and we update you. Usually Carla Fales did that job. She's no longer with the agency. She moved out of state to a different agency, so you are stuck with me. And not a whole lot has changed since the last update last year, so I am not going to go page by page through this for the respect of time. Most of it you guys can read, but I'll just go over some highlights. So, to start this process, we do a community needs assessment, and we also take information off the census and my census and different items. So I just want to give you some numbers. The service area total population for Berry County, 61,045 people, but in the age 60 or over, we were able to get the figure of 15,982 people. So that's 26% of the total service population. So how do we compare nationwide or even to Calhoun County? Calhoun County has about 25% total of the service population, 60 and over, and they were coming in at about 33,400 seniors out of a total population of over 133,000 people. Nationwide, our percentage of people 60 and over is 16.5%, so you can tell Berry County's much higher than that at 26%. And statewide, 60 and over percentage is 19.3. So then again, you see that we are much higher than even the statewide. So I'm going to skip to what the community needs assessment said that where the service needs and gaps are. So the top 5 services most utilized for seniors were reported to be accessing health care, medication management, understanding Medicare is a huge thing, seniors activity centers, and meals, food, and nutrition. So those are the top 5 in Berry County that's most utilized right now. What they're saying the top 5 most needed are technology, we've all heard that more times than not, legal assistance, information and assistance. So at our office, what that enables is we take calls from Calhoun and Berry counties. Maybe somebody's looking for a hospital bed. Maybe something is looking for as simple as a side commode. Maybe they need to get transportation lined up, or maybe they just need help in the home, which is a bigger ask, but it all falls under information and assistance. And we have one person whose job is dedicated to doing that with 2 other people that helps back her up. Again, socialization comes in, which is funny because the next one is senior center activities. So those activities that the Berry County Commission on Aging does is wonderful and very much needed, and we're looking forward to, in this new plan, coming alongside more and seeing what we can do to help them. So that's what was utilized. This is what they're identifying for the future. The current needs identified as staying physically active, preventing falls, social isolation, which again comes into that whole senior center thing. Memory loss is very concerning, and reducing dependency upon others, which is what our mission is, to help people live as independently as possible for as long as possible in the community they choose. If that's at home, that's great. If it's in a facility, that's their choice. So that's the current needs identified. I'm going to go to the multi-year plan. And just for those of you who've never heard this, our mission is to promote health, independence, and choice for seniors, those with disabilities, and caregivers. Our vision is a community where people are cared for with dignity and respect. It's really a shame as people age, and I saw several faces in the waiting in the audience that said from Berry County Commission on Aging, and I know they see that often, that unfortunately it's like you turn this magical number and all this wisdom and everything that seniors has goes out the door, and they're not given the dignity and respect. So we make sure we make that a priority in all things we do. So our strategic goals for this planning year is to address the direct care work crisis that is hurting everybody nationwide. I just got back from Austin, Texas. Besides the fact it was 109 degrees, which was not fun, it was the conference itself was very good, and they really talked about the direct care workforce and things we can do. What we are doing internally is looking at rates that trying to give an increase to those direct care workers. Without them, they really are the backbone of taking care of seniors and persons with disabilities. We're also going to be addressing culture, communication, and leadership within the Careable Services staff. We need to identify new funding sources like most businesses, especially nonprofits, have to do. We are going to look at continued adaptability during times of uncertainty. COVID taught us a lot of what we need to do, in what didn't work. So we now have a committee that meets every quarter to see if we are staying on top of the most relative information, not just health information, but simple IT information. And then we need to address demographic changes, not only for the board, the advisory council, the staff, but also in all of our hiring process with our providers, get some DEI training. That is one of the state's goals that they're pushing hard on, is DEI training. So we have to get some more of that in place.
Excuse me, can you tell us what DEI stands for?
Diverse, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm so used to saying that it just rolls off the tongue now.
I thought there might be some people that might not know what that was.
Yes, absolutely. I was surprised how many staff members didn't know what that meant, so that shows that it's very much needed. So you guys have all heard this before, but I think it's important to say we are governed by the Older Americans Act at the federal level. So what that says is the greatest social and economic need, minority status, frailty in rural or isolated populations we are to serve. Greatest social need is defined as the need caused by non-economic factors such as disability, language, culture, social or geographical isolation that restricts the ability of an individual to perform normal daily tasks or impedes their ability to live independently. So we need to reach not just those in like the town of Hastings or the town of Battle Creek. We need to reach those who are in rural areas all as well. So our priority targeting for this plan, I just mentioned seniors living in rural areas. Because of isolation, they may lack awareness of what programs are out there. Persons living with dementia and caregivers, we see that demand growing. That is something that I heard at the conference, that's probably going to be a couple full-time positions within the next 2 years because the need's going to be so high. And then the marginalized persons with a focus on communities of colors, the LGBTQ population, the immigrants, the veterans, and any other underrepresented group. So, the development objectives, I skipped a couple pages there. We're all in this together, and what our hope is, we want critical alignment rather than standing alone. We don't ever want to stand alone. We want to come alongside and work with our partners. So we have to work through the state plan goals, the agency's strategic framework, and we target our advocacy and strategy to that, our advisory council, which Vivian serves on, and I know Coop was on it before too. We do a lot of work with advocacy and educating people. And just filling in within senior needs assessment, just filling in those gaps that are needed. And then of course, all the partnerships that we have in the community, and we continue to make those. So, real quick, I'm going to go over the program development objectives. And these are what came out of the needs assessment, and this is what came out of the strategic planning. And the advisory council and the board passed these, and they feel these are the key things that we need to focus on during this 3-year plan. So first is to expand the reach of information and awareness of the Aging Network services, ensuring all older adults and caregivers can access culturally and linguistically appropriate information and have awareness of quality of services when they need them. So I'm not going to go on and read how that we're going to do that, but below you can see the different methods. It's basically increasing our resource navigation and leading initiatives to get that done and just continue to strengthen those partnerships. Number 2 focus is address social isolation. Basically that's it in a nutshell. There's several ways we can do that. We have an awesome telephone reassurance program, so if anybody ever has anybody who is lonely, give us a call, let us know, because we can have somebody make phone calls. She's a dedicated volunteer, and she can make those phone calls as often as the person may want. That's a little hidden gem. And then they're also trained if there's any problems that arise up through that to get it to the right person in the office. So we have a companion pet program that's really cool. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's these animated dogs or cats. People with dementia love those. We can give those out for free. Again, reach out to us. I'm spending a little more time on the methods here just because there's such easy fixes that people don't realize. And then we're going to continue to work with the senior center activities and again, the diverse equity inclusion, reaching out to that. The third one is delivery of evidence-based programs. What that, an evidence-based program is, for example, people who fall a lot, I mentioned that as one of the concerns that the seniors have. So we have what's called Matter of Balance. And that is an evidence-based program through, I'm not sure if it's which university it is actually, but it is that stamp of approval. We can get funding for that. We can use state dollars that we get down from federal to state to us to have that program. There's all sorts of different ones, like PATH, which is, it's DPATH is the diabetes wellness class that they have. So we have several of those, and I know the Berry County Commission on Aging taps into those. They do a lot of classes, plus MSU Extension also is trained in a lot of those. The last one is support and increase the number of well-trained direct care workers again. And we spoke about that. The 2023 federal budget includes $235 for direct care workers' wage increase. There's work to make sure that wage increase is made permanent. And then we're supporting the network of direct care workers through training and giving them the resources they have, an opportunity for advancement. So the rest of the stuff in the plan is pretty much the same verbatim for last year. But what I want to let you know is the change is our service, our senior center direct service request. So what we're asking is that funding that we have in our plan already is a portion of that we can have go directly to senior centers to help them meet the needs of the service population. So in the beginning, when I shared what the seniors were looking for, several of those in each category fell back to senior centers. Now, Berry County does not have a traditional senior center, so we look at the Berry County Commission on Aging and work with Tammy Pennington, and we are excited to work with a new director coming up and the staff there to see what we can do to come alongside. We're not here to replace by any means. They have it down pat. They know what they're doing. They know the population up here better than we do. However, we want to come along and have conversations, not when something comes up, but have ongoing conversations and have whoever the new CEO maybe come to more of the board meetings just to listen and say, hey, we can provide this service. Did you even know we had companion pets? You know, they may not have known, and they're like, well, yeah, we can take, 30 of them and give them out to people who need it, or maybe there's a need for ramps to come along. Out of those senior center operations, we can fund more dollars into helping them go ahead and reach the seniors and the caregivers and the persons with disabilities in the area. So that is the main change in there. And like I said, the advisory council and the policy board did already approve this plan. So now I am bringing it to you. I know that was something that was done in the past. It was always brought to you and went over. And you have a few options. You can not do anything at all, not vote to approve it, and then it's actually not do anything at all, and it's considered passively approved, or you vote to approve it, or you deny it. You can do any of those three. What I have to do is then report it up to the state and let them know what your decision was, and then in September I go before the state aging commission and go ahead and report on everybody's findings. I went to Calhoun, I'm here, and we did 2 public hearings, one in Hastings at the Berry County Commission on Aging, and the other one at the Cool Family Community Center. So all those reports are not only turned in writing, but they're also given verbally at the commission meeting. Any questions? I know that was a lot very quickly. I was trying to be.
You did a good job. You did a good job. So, the specific request before this board is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023-2025 multi-year plan for Region 3B Area Agency on Aging, doing business as Carewell Services Southwest.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Point of order, can I talk real quick? Under the Article 5, Section D, I believe it is, citizen participation, any citizen may comment on agenda items prior to taking up a vote.
Under discussion.
Well, let us get through the process of making the motion second and voting on it. But, and then we'll go into discussion.
You won't want to, sorry to interrupt, you won't want to vote. You're correct. The motion should
that's
be
right.
made, seconded.
And then discussion,
The
yes.
board would get the first opportunity.
Opportunity for
this
discussion.
And then Joel's correct. that
Yes.
The audience, so.
Yes. Okay, so when we're done with our discussion, remind me. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and I didn't get who seconded it. Thank you. So discussion. Commissioners, have any questions for, she's done a great job while she's been filling in as the interim CEO for Carewell Services. Stacy's been with them.
7.5 years now.
Yeah, so,
Now, I guess I have a question.
Sure.
Is this where the monies come for Meals on Wheels?
Yes, this is part of it, yep. What we do, and that is interesting you brought that up, because within the next week, I'm going to be releasing the request for proposals. So that's every 3 years as well, and the time's up on that. So yes, that's how we fund these out of, correct.
And is that out of state funds or Fed funds or both?
I believe it, I will have to check for sure. I'm not that involved yet in the finance. I know state for sure. I'm not sure about federal, but I'd be happy to check, give that information to Vivian to share with you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David? Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, you did this presentation to Calhoun County already?
Yes,
What was their decision?
they approved it unanimously.
They did approve it unanimously, okay. Is there an example of dementia-ready communities in the area thus far, or is this something that we're trying to put together in the future?
I don't think there's anything in the area. I know there's some in the state of Michigan. Again, I can find out and let her know so you can look those up. I can try to find links and give them to you. But a lot of what a dementia-ready community is, that was an initiative that we started strong and then COVID hit. So it's like maybe all the people in the downtown area are trained, the shop owners are trained in how to react to somebody with dementia. So for example, I have a husband who has it. It's not bad yet, but just knowing from my training, there's gonna come a time when he's gonna go in there and he's gonna request things that's way far off. And that person, you know, whether it's a card that he would carry or they would just know to pick up on things, something's not right, and treat them with dignity and respect rather than, oh my gosh, this guy's acting weird, we need to call the police, something's going on, you know. Other things could be possibly, let's say you're getting ready to redo your sidewalks, and it's as awesome as they look, you know, the different patterns and everything, and different, like the raised ones and the cobblestones, that could be very difficult to somebody with dementia. So it's just educating the cities, counties, townships to make sure that they're doing whatever's possible to make sure that that community is very dementia friendly. It really comes more into play though with the people.
Okay, so this is more community awareness versus dementia-ready where you've got actual daycare or programs set up to
Correct.
handle the influx of dementia patients, because that's something on the rise. We have limited capacity in the county right now to handle, you know, those type of patients because of the needs that they have, but, okay.
Correct,
I was
but that
hoping,
is something that's on our radar as well, absolutely. We know that that's on the influx, and unfortunately, Barry County right now is the only one who has something at the Commission on Aging because Marion, Birch, and Battle Creek is closed down. So,
I think that would be something that would be a priority to address
Okay.
in the future, just to look at that, because that is a growing need. It's definitely a growing need. What's the current prognosis with staffing?
for our office,
For basically finding care workers you have a lot of ambitious objectives right now, and finding people to make those objectives realistic.
sure. The biggest one that is objective that will be the biggest challenge is the direct care workforce. So much of it is out of our hands. We did get a grant from Michigan Health Endowment, we call it MHEF, and it was for $500,000. And it is, we train we had a provider who came alongside us, and we were able to do a training. And with that training, we gave them a curriculum. A former administrator from a hospital wrote the curriculum. And what we were able to do was, okay, this is how to take care of yourself. This is how to avoid caregiver burnout. This is how to maybe learn the curriculum better as far as verbiage and what they needed to do their job. And it's like 10 different modules in it. And then after that, we gauged how long they're staying with that provider, because they feel more buy-in, more educated, and they were able to get a boost in their pay. MHEF liked that so well that they have reached out to us. It's in its infancy stages right now. They have reached out to us, and they want us to go ahead and partner with other agencies to give that training on a permanent basis for the state of Michigan, so we can get more direct care workforce people in, and they can feel more valued and more prepared to do their job.
How is your funding stream or funding sources versus the last 3-year program going forward? Is that increasing based on need?
Our funding sources right now remain about the same, except for that large grant. And we are always thankfully in a position right now that should the government, for whatever reason, shut down and we lose our funding sources for any amount of time, we have about 3 months, I believe was the last figure I received, in operating reserves to still do what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Catherine or Commissioner Getty?
So, Commissioner Jackson's comments, lead into mine. So I was interested in funding sources, how Carroll Services is funded.
Okay, so we get money from the federal and state government. That's My Choice Waiver. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so I don't know if all of you are, so I'll say it. My Choice Waiver is a state program that allows people to stay in their homes independently for as long as possible, and we pay for direct care workers to come in and take care of you, or we can pay for, let's say, Vivian, let's say you just need a little light housekeeping and a few things that aren't so crucial. You could have maybe a daughter, a cousin, a relative. So we get funding for that. That's our largest funding. And we also get millage funding from Calhoun County. And we aggressively pursue grants. We will always have to do that. We have excellent grant writers. A top-notch one right now, as a matter of fact, who's been secluded 2 days writing another grant for us. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, Joel. Thank you.
Yes. Just stop right here.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Is this to us or is this to her? To Stacy?
You guys are the ones voting on this, so I hope
Okay.
you're listening. Joel Livingston, Rutland Township, and I appreciate the provision that allows me to speak here, but I'm going to keep this as short as I can and as calculated as I can in the amount of time that I have. We need to focus on people, not lifestyles. And I have never come up to this board to address my sex life. I certainly damn well don't want to hear about other people's. I don't want diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want what was promised to us by our forefathers, and that's we are all created equal. We all have equal opportunity to do the same thing. Granted, we're born into different situations, but if we had this diversity, equity, inclusion, like what we have integrated in what seemingly everything, we would not have people like George Washington Carver. People who worked their way up from the bottom, the absolute pits of what one of the greatest stains that this nation ever saw. And I don't want to see the continuance of putting all of these different things which are quite frankly choices that people make and propping them up onto a pedestal and then handicapping the people that we need most to run this nation. Also, we need to remember to address social isolation, and we need to make sure that never again will we keep loved ones from each other when people were isolated and so forth during the pandemic. We've just some different things. I want to make sure that we keep this agenda completely out of politics, because it is going to continue to get in the way of allowing people who have drugged themselves up from literally the bottom from becoming people, leaders that we need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Brandon Strong, Kingston Sharp Township. So much of that presentation was very good, and I thank you for that. But I would echo Joel's sentiment. DEI and all of that, keep it away from what we're doing with our seniors. Please, I'm begging of you. So much of what she presented was so good and what we need to provide for seniors. But that piece, there's no way. It's not unnecessary. Or at least rescind that part of this plan. We beg of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elvin Schellenberger, and I think we need to keep it from individualized groups, targeting them especially, because God said we all were created equal. And in that, we further isolate people by taking and doing them by groups. And this racial group, this one because of their sexual orientation, this one for this one for something else. And I just don't think that's right, because all men were created equal by their creator.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo some of that.
Okay.
Yeah, my name's Adam Pike, a local business owner. Because this is the same thing that I've been talking to you guys about for quite some time now, on how, again, outside forces control things that are going on in our local community. You know, what she explained here is that, you know, these are requirements that the state is putting down, right? Which also means that any state funds and other things that are going to be coming down for any of these programs are going to be tied to that diversity, inclusion, and equity studies and programs and what you're doing. That's what's been going on in all of the system, right, to control down into our local communities. And what that does is it's removing the importance of the individual, just like what they're saying. Yeah. And we get people that laugh about it because these people have been destroying what America was founded on, is individual freedom. And individual freedom comes from us controlling and understanding that you all are servants of ours. That you're here to work for our greater benefit and greater good. That you are not here to rule over us in any capacity. But what we have now is a system from the top down, controlled by dollars, controlled by ignorance of all of us. Ignorance of all of us not knowing what our duty is to maintain a self-governed society, not a policed and controlled by elite groups in boards that get elected and then change who they are. By politics, by actually representation. And this right here, the whole thing, the diversity, inclusion, and equity, because that's what it is. It spells DIE. They'd always change it to DEI, but it spells DIE because it is a Marxist agenda that destroys nations, guys. And it's destroying our nation right now.
Thank you. Okay, so I appreciate, Joel, that you asked for permission.
Chuck Kirchler, AC City.
Could you kind of not, just in case you're going to wave your arms. Don't smack Stacy.
I just wanted to add just one little bit. I know that on every other meeting, you guys start out with an invocation, praying to the God that we all should be believing in and trusting. And if you actually believe in this God that you pray to, and you believe in his 10 commandments, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if there isn't anyone else, what we had before the board and we had a motion on my right page here, to recommend to the board the approval of the multi-year plan for Region 3B Area Agency on Aging, DBA Carewell Services Southwest. There is no other, we could do a voice vote on this, can't we, Pam? Because it's a cow. Pam?
I'm sorry.
We could do a voice vote on
Yes,
it.
we can.
Thank you. So the motion before the board, I've repeated it again. All those in favor to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023-2025 multi-year plan for Region 3B Area Agency on Aging, DBA Carewell Services Southwest. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know we had at the Commission on Aging was when they had their public meeting. That was back in May. So Berry County did have a public meeting on this.
And Ben was at that one too.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not here today, so.
So I apologize, I have to run. I have a sick child, so I have to get her to the doctor.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing this. I mean, it's great to, see where the dollars goes and who they help here in the county. Moving on. Pam. Thank you. So, let me get that one. Specific, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of replacement of county clerk workstations by Interface Interiors in the amount of $16,395.87 with funds to be paid from the Capital Replacement Fund. A motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Support, Gibson.
Pam?
Yes, I became aware early this year that our workstations have electric run through the conduit of all of the workstations, and we were shorting out. So when one clerk would turn on, say, an overhead light, another clerk's monitor would kick out, usually in the middle of waiting on a customer. I had electricians come in and take a look at this, and they said that it's very complex in getting into that electrical to see where and what the problem would be and what the fix would be. So I've been working with Interface Interiors for the better part of 6 to 8 months, coming up with designs, and we finally have landed on one that is agreeable with everyone, and the estimate is $16,395.87. My clerks are also getting pokes or shocks off of their equipment, so they never know when they're going to get shocked.
Okay, discussion. Is that it? Anything else?
Here to answer questions.
Okay.
How old is that stuff?
I know it's 15 plus years old, and as far back as I've traced it, and I know it came to us used. There's a theory that perhaps when we got new carpeting and they raised it up, that something may have gotten bent as far as the electrical portion of it. It's a theory, I don't have anything to stand behind that, but it does make sense to me.
Anybody else? David?
You had other estimates, other designs, other quotes for this?
No, I was told that the county has a contract, I believe, Michael?
It's my bad.
This is through the My Deal of Michigan
Okay.
Cooperative Purchasing Agreement. It's Hayworth Equipment, Hayworth Furniture. And Interphase is the vendor that Hayworth contracts with for the government contract side of the process. So the state of Michigan has bid this out and then extends that purchasing to us.
This is the same, Interphase is the same what we did at the front of the court.
That's correct.
Sure.
Is there a plan on keeping services going with this 4-day process of replacing furniture?
I'm working on that. I believe that I will be working with IT department to tear down our computers and workstations. I hope to have enough room to set up at least 2 workstations across the hall in our accounting department, and then I'll be having the other 2 work from home, and we may, swap that back and forth throughout the week. It's an estimate of 4 days, I'm figuring 5, for the tear out and then also the install.
Okay. There might be a benefit to having those electrical shocks continue. It keeps your staff on their toes. You never quite know when you're gonna, they won't fall asleep on the job. They'll be there.
I didn't know it was happening until I heard ow. What's going on? So I walked out from this does not include new furniture for my office or for the office across from my accounting department. This is just for the 4 workstations out that actually wait on the public. But I walked out to see, what's out? What's going on out here? And it's, every time I touch this and I'm touching that or whatever, I get a shock. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So we happen to have, I forget the name, but the electrical company in looking at something else. So I had them come over to take a look at this. And they said to track down and find where the break or bend is in the electrical is nearly impossible without tearing all the equipment, all the furniture apart in the long run anyway. So this is my next step.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Bruce?
I'd just like to say it seems like a reasonable request. It seems like something that's going to help our employees, and more importantly, it's going to help our constituents and citizens get their work done more accurately and quickly, and everybody be more happy.
Thank you. All right.
I will say that they are booking these jobs about 10 to 12 weeks out, so this won't be happening next week or the week after. It's going to be more like in about September.
Okay. So if there aren't any other questions, the motion before the board is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of replacement of county clerk workstations by Interphase Interiors in the amount of $16,395.87 with funds to be paid from the Capital Replacement Fund. This was made by Smelker and seconded by Gibson. Did I get that right? Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. With no objection, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Sorry, thanks.
Yep. Nope, I'm right there with you, Jim. 5-minute break?
I'm good.
Okay.
That long to walk over here.
If we can take our seats and keep going and
I'll find out.
Yeah, and I'll get ahold of Melanie.
Okay.
we will call the meeting back to order at 10:03. Mr. Kirsch, thank you for coming before us. The action we have this morning, board, is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to replace a vacant full-time kennel worker position with a second full-time animal shelter technician position.
So moved, Jackson.
Thank you.
Support, Gibson.
Motion by Jackson, seconded by Gibson. Ken, like I said, sad, but
Yep.
we have appreciated you so much.
Well, I'm not there yet, but it's getting close. It's getting to be about that time, and I obviously my goal is to have a succession plan and have things move forward to continue with everything we've gained in the last 5+ years, and in doing that, I'd like to be able to take this full-time kennel worker position, which is limited on their ability to work in certain places within the shelter, finances, computers, medical things, that type of thing, and switch that over to a kennel technician position, which then hopefully we can hire this person. They'll have a year to be trained, to get on board, and be able to, when I retire, transition into, if of course it's up to the commissioners, potentially is to take over and just continue going forward as the director. And so I believe that you have to have a plan, no matter which direction you're going in at all times, and this is the plan that I'm hoping we'll be able to go forward with. It'll allow be able to fill in this position. Will also be able to allow to fill in for the director when I'm gone, and also for the other kennel technician, which is of course Cindy, who's at the front desk handling the bills, the finances, the computer systems, that type of thing. It'll be a union position, so I'll post it internally for the amount of time that's required. The bottom line is I want to be able to have someone to replace me when I retire. That person needs to be a kennel tech versus a kennel worker, and that way they have the authority and the ability to learn all aspects of the job. And so we have that current position that's a kennel worker. There is a cost to it, and I have that's all detailed out in the paperwork I supplied for you, and that's kind of where we're at today.
Okay. So, are there any questions from commissioners?
I guess my question is I'm sorry to see you thinking about retirement, but afterwards, would this position go back to part-time, you think? If your person gets hired in?
Right.
Would that go back to part-time?
That would be up to the new director, but that would be an idea.
John, if I
So,
could real
yeah.
quickly interrupt, it's a full-time kennel worker,
Right.
so argue the tech position, the idea would be the tech
What
position.
about the part-time kind of work?
No, it's a full-time kennel worker. So Ken it's gonna squeeze this position a bit in that Ken is losing a full-time kennel worker, dedicated kennel worker, and gonna now have a technician. That technician is gonna have to do from soup to nuts, if you may, in the department. And that's kind of the idea, that he or she will learn the whole aspect of the business and have an opportunity to be developed in that capacity. But yeah, if the board were to then get to the point that that individual is who they selected to replace Ken, the idea would be that this kennel technician, you go back to one kennel tech and a full-time
Kennel worker. Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess my thoughts on this is this is happening in the middle of the year before budget time. I'd like to see this money taken out of the animal shelter fund instead of general fund for 1 year.
The donation
And then-
fund.
The donation fund. And then work this in, if they decide to keep it, work it into our budget year coming up. Just my thoughts.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm not against putting the worker in.
Any?
No, I think the succession planning is brilliant. We don't get an opportunity to have that a lot in county government, where someone actually is training their replacement going forward from A to B. So I like that idea. Ken's done a magnificent job coming in and put a lot of effort, energy, weekends, long hours in through COVID. So I've seen that list of toys grow, so I know you've got a good retirement plan set up there that I'm jealous of, but, you know, so.
Grandchild coming.
Yeah, and a grandchild, so, you know, but there will be, I'm not opposed to that. You know, as far as funding that, I think the donation fund's got a pretty robust balance right now, and we have not spent that money. So, I mean, I think for the $9,000, I think that's a good idea for this point. We can work it into next year's budget. The shelter has not recovered from pre-COVID and 400 to 500 hours a month in volunteer hours to where they're at now, so they need the help. So, and I think we can take this opportunity to set that up. I think it's a good strategy.
So what you mentioned, just for kind of clarification, is you just want that donation fund to cover what's remaining in this year's?
The 9,000.
The 9,000. And then with the budget that was submitted for 2023, that would come from the general then when we do our budget work. So do you know what the donation fund balance is?
296,542.26.
Okay.
Very good.
Very good.
Well, I wrote it down, just in case you asked. So yes, I do have the $9,000, yes.
Okay, okay, all right. Any other discussion?
No, I
Okay.
agree with John on it. I think if we have the funds there, it sounds like that's available. It's a good way to go on this. And
I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad that Ken is thinking about what's best for the county by coming up with this idea.
I do too. Thank you, Ken.
You bet.
yeah, Vivian, I think an alternative plan would be to ask Ken not to retire. But
I did that out in the hall.
He did.
I know.
Still, my arm is behind my back.
Okay, so, it wasn't part of the motion where that money was coming from. It is funding required. And it does say down here, if local specify funding general. Do we, maybe need to make a motion to just cover?
If you want to make a friendly amendment, if you made it a motion to state that funding will come from the animal shelter donation fund, that'll correct that, and we know that for 2023, we'll build that in as a general fund.
And John, you made that motion. Do you want to?
Amend it.
You amend it to
take
add
it
that?
out of the donation fund. Or,
Vote on the amendment first.
okay.
So the amendment would be to to add that the funds for the remainder of the 22 fiscal year come from the animal shelter donation fund in the amount of $9,482. That's the amendment.
I'll support it.
Thank you. Gotta write this down. Motion by Smelker on the amendment, seconded by Jackson, to take those $9,482 out of the animal shelter donation fund. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now on the original motion, which was to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to replace a vacant full-time kennel worker position with a second full-time animal shelter technician position. That was motioned by Jackson, seconded by Gibson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken, for all you do. Appreciate that. Okay. Luella, is she here? Or are you handling this,
I'll take
Michael?
care of this one.
Okay. So we have a motion before the board. Well, actually, it is a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint, and it's blank right now, as officer delegate and an officer alternate for the Michigan Employees Retirement System annual meeting, and to approve paying the expenses for the officer delegate and employee delegate to attend on September 26th to the 27th at the Grand Traverse Resort in Acme, Michigan. Anybody gonna even make that motion with the blanks?
I'll make the motion.
I'll support it.
Thank you.
Good morning. For those that aren't aware, the Michigan the Municipal Employees Retirement System is the retirement system. It's a statewide pool that we participate with. And every year they hold an annual conference/annual meeting. There is a requirement that each municipality that participates send to the conference a officer delegate and an employee delegate to vote on board members for the board that represents all of the members. The employee delegate this year is Amber McQueen with the trial court system, and the employee delegate is Gary Pearson, who's a sheriff's deputy. You will need to appoint the officer delegate and alternate to attend that meeting. Generally, it's just the delegate themselves that attend, so we send one officer delegate and one employee delegate, and then if those individuals aren't able to attend for some reason, the alternate can go in their place. We don't generally send additional folks. I attend the meeting every year. Prior to being on the MERS board, I attended often as the officer delegate, but I'm a member of the MERS board, so the MERS itself sends me to the conference, so it opens up an additional spot. A few of you have attended in the past, and the conference is this year at the Grand Traverse Resort up in Acme, near Traverse City, September 26th and 27th.
I've been 2 or 3 times. I think I've actually been 3 times. I think once it was at Grand Rapids.
And it does not have to be a board member. It could be a department head or other elected official. So
Is Luella gone?
she has not. It's all.
Department head. She's a deputy.
She's a deputy, so I think she would qualify.
Qualify?
Yes. We talked a little bit about it, and I don't believe that she's interested this year. She did comment that I think Dave Schinover has indicated that he would be interested and willing to attend. Is that correct, Dave?
Affirmative, yes.
If there, okay. So that's an option if there isn't a board member that's wanting to attend.
And Bruce went last year, correct, Bruce?
Yeah.
And I know, David, you've been.
I've been before as well. Acme's a nice facility up there in Traverse City. That's a beautiful place up there, so.
Yeah.
I'll decline.
Okay.
I'll decline.
I'm not available. Not available?
I say we send Dave Schindler.
If we need an alternate, you can put my name in as an alternate.
Okay.
So, approval to appoint David Schinover. And I will be the officer alternative. You're feeling healthy and well, and you're gonna be able to attend.
Thinking about MERS a lot more lately.
Oh. Okay, so if there isn't any other discussion. Okay, so to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint David Schinover as officer delegate and Vivian Connor as officer alternate to attend the 2022 Municipal Employees Retirement System Annual Meeting and to approve paying the expenses for the officer delegate and the employee delegate to attend on September 26th through the 27th at the Grand Traverse Resort in Acme, Michigan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. And the last agenda item here, approval to hire director for Berry County Commission on Aging. So can we get some extra, are there extra chairs up here? Or we've got Sally and Terry. Are you coming up, Terry?
Oh, we'll fill the whole front, just.
Okay. Can you, thank you. So the motion is the action to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to hire Courtney Zinni. Did I say that right? Zinni? Okay. For the Commission on Aging Director as recommended by the Commission on Aging Board. May I have a motion? Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved, Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion by Jackson, seconded by Smelker. And we'll move into the presentation before discussion. So Sally, this is Sally Schaaf.
Hi, I'm Sally Schaaf. I'm chair of the COA board. And our recommendation is Courtney Zinni, who's here with us today. We went through a quite extensive search. We're pleased that Courtney is a local, born and raised. She's been working with United Way with the VITA, got that right? VITA tax program. She knows our community. She has worked with our seniors. She has worked with the COA. And we are very excited to recommend her for the executive position.
Ben isn't here. He was going to present, but so I talked a little bit to Michael. You had before you the her letter, Courtney's letter, and her resume. You had a time to look over that. I did have a couple of questions. Sally had said that they interviewed 2 individuals, is that correct?
We interviewed 3.
Oh, 3
with the
individuals.
committee, and then 2 in front of the entire board.
2 in front of the entire board. I did ask, just for whoever, they have not given Courtney a letter yet, offering her the position because they're waiting for us to make this determination. This board, and I checked with Michael this morning, trying to fill in some of the gaps since Ben called yesterday that I wasn't sure about. This board created the Commission on Aging Board, is that right, Michael?
That's correct.
So that's why it's before us. They've done their legwork, they've done their homework, their search and everything, and it is that's their recommendation. So it's to us. I don't know, open it up to discussion. Does anybody have any questions for this group? Sally kind of spearheaded the group that was in search of someone to fill that new, or not the new, the vacancy when Tammy retires later this year. When is Tammy retiring?
The end of August.
The end of August.
We would like to have an executive in place by August 1st so that they have 30 days of training with Tammy, because it's quite an extensive job.
Okay. Anybody with questions? Catherine?
Is it the practice for the commissioners to approve the hire, or is the...
To approve the recommendation?
To approve the recommendation?
That's how I see it, is they've done the legwork, but.
In the COA bylaws, it says that the board hires
The board.
approval of the county commissioners. So we make the hire, but then that hire has to be approved by the board. That's what our bylaws say, which the county commissioners.
So like approving the recommendation from your board.
And this is the first time we've had to go through this.
Tammy's been in that position a while.
She's been with us since the start of the COA, so it's the very first time we've gone through it.
So it's a lot like what we do for, when we approve their recommendation.
I think we need to change the wording to accept the decision of the COA board. If we accept their decision, it
Just approve of their decision.
would accept their decision. Because I approved to hire. We didn't even interview anybody. We weren't on interviews, or we're just meeting the person for the first time, and
Ben was on that committee.
we trust their decision. We just approve their decision.
Ben was on
My
that committee.
thought.
Ben was also on the hiring committee, so I didn't know that.
Seems to be absent today.
Yes. Anybody, David, Bruce, any questions?
Nope.
So do you want to amend the motion?
I'd like to amend the motion to accept the decision of the COA board. Instead of approval, we would accept the decision of the COA board.
Michael, will that work when our bylaws say approval? If they change it to decision, will that make a difference?
Haven't seen the bylaws, but if they do say approve with the approval of the Board of Commissioners, then effectively you would be to approve the recommendation of the
COA.
Commission on Aging to hire Courtney Zinni as the next executive director.
I believe that's the way it should read.
But if he changes approval to accepting the decision,
Your decision was to hire
does that
her.
make any difference?
I would modify it.
I wouldn't do that, Sharon. I would leave approval in there. Approval
because that's what
of
the
the COA
bylaws say.
board decision.
I think because of
So-
what the bylaws say.
Okay, so let's take a couple seconds and I'll work with Michael to rewrite this. So we'll stand adjourned for a couple of minutes. Thank you for being patient with us as we rewrite that motion. So we're back in session. So we have rewritten it. I would ask David, would you be willing to withdraw your motion?
Motion withdrawn.
John, your second?
Also withdrawn.
Thank you. So, we have to vote on that being withdrawn?
You do.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, so, the new motion, or the new specific action requested, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the recommendation by the COA Board to hire Courtney Zinni as the Commission on Aging Director.
So,
Okay. Same, Jackson motions, Smelter seconds. I'm sorry, what did you say, Sally?
The title is Executive Director.
Sorry. You want to make that amendment?
Sure, just correction
Friendly?
the title.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll reword to recommend. So we're gonna vote on the amendment is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the recommendation by the COA Board to hire Courtney Zinni, Commission on Aging, adding Executive Director. That is the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, that passes. So to vote actually on the motion, any other discussion before we move forward? Anyone? Okay. To recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the recommendation by the COA Board to hire Courtney Zinni as the Commission on Aging Executive Director. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. And you'll take care of doing the letter and offering. Thank you. Yep. It was nice to meet you, Courtney.
Nice to meet you as well. And we're gonna all rush out because we are serving lunches at the fair.
Fair,
today.
senior day at the fair.
Don't run too fast.
I never run very fast.
Thank you very much for being patient with us. Public comment. Do we have public comment? Should the
Eldon Schellenberger Hastings. I'd like to thank Ken. He's done a terrific job down there at the animal shelter. I've seen a major improvement down there with him being in charge down there. But what I'd like to see when he retires and his replacement is look for. There's one thing I would like you guys to take notice, especially for the commissioners who don't know the previous problems that were there. I hope you guys don't hire Diana Newman. My understanding is that she is working with Eaton County Animal Shelter right now, and who knows if she's going to come back and because of working over there, working here and apply, because that place was just a total fiasco. So I wanted to bring this to your guys' attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Joe Livingston, Rutland Township again. I want us to focus on helping our neighbors without having to have them sign some ridiculous questionnaire or disclaimer determining their eligibility contingent on what happens in their bedroom. If we continue to go down this road, we will be so confused we won't even be able to define a woman in this county, let alone preserve the rights that many worked so hard to get. If you don't believe it was difficult to be a woman at one point in time in the state of Michigan, read the Constitution of 1850. Some seem to be so strongly behind women's rights that they're willing to dish them to anyone, including men. And this agenda is creeping in on us one department at a time through votes like the one that just happened. You can see it in sports today with transgender athletes absolutely dominating women's sports, and they don't even have to work hard. You want equality or equity. The establishment has pushed this deadly agenda to the point where it has actually accomplished the reversal of women's rights. It has done the inverse of what many have fought for. I have a daughter. I will do anything I can to protect her, but even more important to me is to raise her up in a way that she will be able to stand up what she knows is right and to be able to defend herself from the challenges we face ahead. And it's decisions like this one that you guys just allowed to happen that make my role as a father exceedingly more difficult. I'm not trying to create a bubble for her to live in. That's not my goal. I'm just simply trying to defend what's right. And I know we cannot legislate morality, but we sure seem to be able to preserve its inverse. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Wait a second. Can't tell how hard I'm pressing on the screen because of my arthritis, so sorry about that. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam Heichel, local business owner. Again, I just want to keep repeating myself because that's what's had to happen. I've been doing this for going on a decade now, talking to boards, addressing boards, and really in myself figuring out how all this works. I think that's what all of you really should be after as well. I know that it's hard when you're in that position, to hear from an outsider's perspective, because that's the way you treat things, and that's the way that it is viewed and the way it's handled. Again, it's not just you as a board. This is with all the boards that I've had to address. We've got situations in my own township that we're working on as well, because they're doing more and more to separate themselves. I commend you all, though, because there are multiple things that you do that our board does not do. And I know that you are doing some things that are good and in the right direction. But it still doesn't, those things get overshadowed then, when we just rubber stamp and don't even discuss or talk about anything like the the people that were upset or wanted to bring a discussion about the diversity, inclusion, and equity agenda. That's part of all that. Why can't you all just have any discussion on it? Why can't you all just say something, address some concern that was brought forth by the people here today? Again, it just shows that you don't care what is said, because you know that you're going to vote on it all unanimously. What did Calhoun County do? Oh, they voted unanimously. Well, I guess we'll vote unanimously too, right? It's good for them. It's good for us. That's what we got to do. But again, those things are in place because of the controls that we, the people, have allowed to happen, because we haven't been participating in holding you all in our local communities accountable fully. I think that time is coming. I think that we're going to get a lot of new people here, and that's exciting. That's exciting to see, because new things are happening across America right now because of this COVID scam that's been placed upon us. Yeah. Because what's happened is we've seen the tyranny that our government has available in what they have been allowed to do. People can laugh at it all they want from the peanut gallery here. But the truth is, we've seen a government that has forced people to cover their faces, forced them to say that things are not essential to purchase or not. I mean, the things that happened in the last couple of years, and it all stems from us not holding you and you as a board, not understanding your role. So let's continue to work to make a difference and change that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on. This is our new item on our agenda, commissioner comments. If it's okay with board, I'd like to start. We recently got an email about the shooting range out at the Berry State Game Area. I had a question regarding what's happening there. I have reached out, I emailed one of the individuals that works there. He's a tech, I don't know if he's a technician anymore. I think he may be higher than that now. To find out where we are. Originally, that was in process and approved, and then COVID hit, so they had to stop work out there. So I am waiting for a response. It was on my computer last night at 11 o'clock. I haven't looked yet this morning, but I will see if I have a response to that, and we'll follow up with any information I get on that. Because I noticed that it's starting to grow back in. They're going to have to clear it all again. But I'll see where we're at with the shooting area out at the Berry State Game Area on M179.
I emailed as well, so we can share
Okay.
reports and see if they're consistent.
Okay. Anyone else? David?
I do. First of all, addressing some of the comments that were made last week from our friends at Pleasant Lake. I went down on Floria Road and walked on the weir, looked at both sides, looked at the device that's currently limiting water flow out of the lake. Had an extensive conversation with the drain commissioner about the permit and what would happen to the lake. It's very hard to get down to actually put a yardstick in there to see the bottom of that culvert and how far the water would actually go down if that contraption was not there. Jim said 3 feet. I think it's probably more like 18 to maybe 24 inches. So I think in listening to our friends from Pleasant Lake and talking to the drain commissioner, I don't think the communication was very good between the two. So there are good points on both sides. If the lake drops 2 feet, which might be extreme, but if it drops 2 feet, that would be a big detriment to Mud Lake and some of that habitat in there. But Pleasant Lake is still high. So there are areas of Pleasant Lake that are high that could use a reduction in water as well. So there's a fine line in there. So I think it's worth us continuing the discussion. There's some big advocates on Pleasant Lake that are here that are going to continue to get signatures. And I think there'll be some good minds that can sit down between Pleasant Lake and the Drain Commissioner and this board and really evaluate the need going forward for that. So I see that continuing to happen. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. It's going to take some while because, as I told Mary Maselli, is that correct? That I know when we were talking last week, there were 35 signatures. I know there's more now, but at 150 or 180 homes on the lake.
123.
123 homes, 123 property owners, that 35 can't speak for 123. That you really need a majority of the people to actually bring that to us. So, and I know they're working towards that, so that's fine. And like I said, there are reasonable minds that can evaluate that going forward. The other thing that John and Bruce and I did sit down with Michael to have a discussion as far as the ad hoc committee goes with our focus on the general capital proposal for buying parking spaces from the county. And I think that we represent the feelings of this board at this point, which is we're very early in the process. We don't have an offer. We don't have any details. We don't know how big the building's going to be. We don't have a traffic study. We don't have approval from Hastings City Planning and Zoning. There is a long, long, long way to go to see this all. MSHDA still has to approve funding that they've kind of earmarked for this project. So, but our message is that we're not going to be the reason this project fails. That we're open-minded about doing our part to be sure that this happens, providing all those other things are in line. But we're not really in a position to negotiate something where we don't know what we're giving up, going to. But I think it's an opportunity for a private-public partnership where they're asking for an easement. And I think in talking to Michael, an easement should work out for what we're looking for. And I think there's an opportunity that we can manage those parking spaces, especially in the evening, and make that project work. So the county is not, in our focus, our opinion, the county is not standing in the way of that project moving forward. And that's the message that we want a general capital to have, and hopefully that's the message that represents your thoughts on that as well. So it's just a long, long way to go. So there's no commitments, nothing more than dialogue at this point with general capital. So when that time comes, we'll continue to report to the board exactly what's happening and if there's a need for us to take any action on that. So the other thing is that as we had that discussion, the discussion will blossom because since it's been getting a little press, there are other organizations who have actually inquired about using the front of the court building for other things. There are other things to consider, but that our focus is so narrow, we don't really have the ability to debate that. So at some point, I think at a future COW, we'll talk to Michael a little bit more about this, it may be worthy of discussion to whether or not that ad hoc committee should be expanded to evaluate what else could be a fit for the front of the court building. Other organizations, incubators, other things that are potential for that. There was talk about potentially the Drain Commissioner's office being as small as it is, being a fit for something like that, and rearranging some county administration so it's closer to where Michael's at in that. There's a lot of things. It's been mentioned by people in the audience and brought up briefly about the 21 acres at Algonquin Lake. It may be a good time to evaluate county facilities as a whole and see if we can make some improvements, provide some vision and direction going forward. So, did I say that correctly for the two of you guys that were there? So, those were just some thoughts that were brought up in that meeting that the board is so narrowly focused. Our charge is very specific with what we're able to do. So there may be an opportunity, if the entire board agrees, to expand that vision for what we can do countywide. So.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Are they looking to us to make a decision so that they can base the size of their building, their project?
Have not had a phone conversation with them at this point, but the first meeting was basically taking what the board had discussed and trying to capsulize that into an email. Michael, I don't know if you've sent a communication?
Have not yet.
Okay. So, but.
It was just, I didn't know if they were looking to us to give them some kind of, so that they could determine the scope of their project.
Yeah, and what we kind of decided, the path forward is, you said it's a long way to go, but that we're willing to work with them to make the project work. If it's a few parking spaces, especially in the evening hours, whatever the case is, I think we can work together on that and make that work. That the board is not going to stand in the way, and we're not going to be the reason the project fails. That we're willing to put our ideas and work as a public-private partnership together to make it work. If Hastings City Planning and Zoning agrees that this is it, and they determine the size and the scope of that building and the parking, MISTA, all those things come together, then I think we'll have an obligation to make that work at some point on our part. So, big or small. And at this point, it seems pretty small. Our part of it seems very small. So.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah.
Any other commissioner? Comments? Comments? All right. Well, without any other board comments, we're at the end of our meeting, and I would like to, if there is no objection, adjourn the meeting. Meeting is adjourned.